Should I start?
Please.
So yeah, just very shortly, ClearSpace is a spin-off from EPFL. What we do at ClearSpace is we develop a tow truck for space to be able to provide servicing to an infrastructure where today already 240 billion has been invested, but that doesn't have any capacity to maintain or intervene in situ. So what we do is the capacity to intervene, pick up an object in space in either the orbit, a failed satellite or debris, but in the future repair, intervene, move satellites from one orbit to another, and do other services as we move along.
Thanks, Luke. And hi, everyone. My name's Steve Jacobs. I'm a partner at Lakestar, leading our deep tech investment thesis. We define deep tech as fundamentally new science and engineering making its way into products and companies for the first time. So we were very excited when we met with Luke and learned a bit more about what ClearSpace is doing. And maybe that's where we start. Can you tell us a little bit about how an engineer out of EPFL in Switzerland makes its way into the space debris removal industry?
So actually, the space debris removal industry ClearSpace is my first space company, right? I've been an engineer by education, but then I've been working in sales, technical sales for large governmental project for a few years, and then I worked also in startups, in different types of companies. And after an executive in Stanford, I realized a couple of things. The first one is that there's only a few hours left in my life, and I wanted to have more impact. And the second one is the fact that the space industry today is going through something very similar as the microcomputer industry went through 40 years ago, right? Going from the mainframe to the PC. And so this is a really interesting domain where to work. And I met my co-founder that was working on the problem of space debris, and putting all of that together just may naturally lead us to the conclusion we have to get started with this project.
Awesome. And Muriel, your co-founder, really fantastic aerospace engineer. I've enjoyed getting to know her over the years. So you start this company, you have a mission. There's a clear need out there, right? There's a lot of space debris. There's also life extension for large geosynchronous satellites. And it was funny, I was actually on a flight back from London to Spain, I think it was, and I was passing through Spanish airspace, and they had to divert our plane because it was I think it was a Chinese fuselage was falling through kind of the Atlantic off the coast of Spain that day. And this was not long after we initially met. So this problem is clearly not a theoretical problem, right? It's a practical problem that we have to solve. And in service of that, we're seeing these massive contracts that are being awarded in Europe, in the US, in other geographies around the world. Maybe can you share a little bit about this €100 million contract that you won with ESA, and then some of the other projects that you're also working on?
So yeah, when we started the company, our take was there's not going to be a tender for any debris removal mission before 23, 24. We founded the company in January 2018. In September, we received a call for proposal from ESA, and the question was, can we, with a team of 2 people, win a contract of that scale? And so we submitted a proposal. We set up an industrial team, submitted a proposal, and then in June 2019, we were 4 at the time. We won the tender for a first debris removal mission by the European Space Agency for about €100 million in competition with Airbus, Thales, and Avio. The problem then is that you have to deliver that kind of program, right? It's been a really tough learning curve working with ESA and growing as a prime contractor. But essentially, we've been very lucky that we could put a very good team together and build a proposal that was very credible and solid. Beside that, we secured another first phases of another mission with the UK Space Agency. Our UK team won this tender in 2021. Today we are finishing phase B. We'll have a tender for the complete mission that should come out in a couple of months, and that's going to be 60 to 70 million pounds. I think we're in a good position to win that as well. And then we see the US starting to move in that direction. CNES and the French government is investing substantially in that kind of subject. We started working with large geostationary satellite operator for life extension. In particular, we signed a term sheet with Intelsat for life extension mission, where essentially all of them are the same technology. You have to be able to get into contact with a satellite, intervene on it, capture it, and then to be able to do operations, navigate the stack. And that's essentially what we do.
Yeah, and Luke's a lot smarter than I am, so I'll tell you the way I think about life extension. ClearSpace makes a very sophisticated jetpack that they fly out to like $1 billion geosynchronous satellite, grabs onto it when it runs out of fuel, and like keeps it in orbit, because they need a little fuel to fight Earth's gravity. And that basically allows them to continue to service their customers with this very expensive, fully depreciated asset that otherwise would run out of fuel. There's no gas station in space, right? You can't just fill it back up. So that's pretty cool. And you mentioned that this is happening in the US, this is happening in Europe and other countries around the world. What are you seeing from a competitive landscape perspective? When you look at, you're starting with these government contracts, you're really proving that you can build this sovereign capability into Europe, into the UK, et cetera. You know, there must be some activities going on elsewhere in the world, and then there'll be some competition at some point. How do you see ClearSpace fitting into that global fabric?
I think that the challenge we'll have in the coming years is that the US is moving really fast, right? We were kind of lucky because Europe was ahead on the in-orbit servicing development, and in particular on debris removal, where the US was kind of lagging behind and not really moving. But right now what we see is that the US, they went through, there's the Orbit Act that went through the Senate with unanimity that instructs the Department of Commerce to identify all the objects that have in space which are really dangerous, and instructs NASA to do a mission to demonstrate the technologies. So very similar to ClearSpace One. I think that one of the challenges we'll have is the difference of budget available in Europe and in the US. ESA has 14.3 billion over the last ministerial for a period of 3 years. So
ESA is
the European Space Agency. Yeah. I'm sorry. They have a massive budget, but there's at the same time traditional way to approach space missions, which is one of the challenges to overcome, and the other one is the funding and where the funding goes. It gives a lot of hope to see the European Space Agency or some of the European government invest into startup like ClearSpace or the exploration company that was on stage just a little before. I think this is a hope for making change, producing change in the European space industry, but we still have, I think, to catch up on the mindset that you see in a SpaceX, for example, for many of the operations we have in Europe. This said, we look at it like this: what we develop in Europe, we can export to the US. This means when we talk with the US counterparts, with the Space Force and others, what we tell them, we say, well, we laid the foundation in Europe, we can reuse this kind of technology and leapfrog other startups in the US and get very quickly to a very high level of maturity and be a serious player globally. And that what we want to do is produce a global leader. That's what we try to do.
Got it. Interesting. And we talked a bit about the commercial applications. There's life extension, right? The backpack, the jetpack that keeps these satellites in orbit, and debris removal, which is, hey, we've got a lot of, used up satellites and other debris fuselages from rockets that we need to safely land in the ocean or burn up in the atmosphere. Someone needs to do that work. Governments clearly are invested in that. There's a lot of regulation that's come around that's requiring that for any new commercial entities. So that's kind of the commercial side of the opportunity. And again, no one's doing this in Europe, right? You're the first. So it's kind of a blue ocean opportunity. And then there's this crossover into defense applications, right? There's the opportunity to kind of use these assets to support European sovereignty through kind of defense applications. How do you see that?
So clearly, in-orbit servicing or the capacity to pick up a debris in orbit or an object in orbit is a dual-use technology. It could be like the clean space weapon, if you want. It could be that. Our approach and our perspective is that very likely some of the early adopters are going to be defense clients, mostly to remove their own stuff, because starting to intervene on assets from a foreign power is kind of problematic. It's the kind of weapon you don't want everybody start using. But then what a lot of defense agencies do is they're very secretive about the satellites they put up there in orbit. But then once they lose control of it, they become inspectable. So for them to remove them from orbit is a real advantage. Yeah. And we see a real interest for that. We already have quite some discussions left and right on those subjects. We expect that probably some of the first customers that are going to be in the early adopter group are going to be defense agencies.
Super exciting. And we only have our 10 minutes. So maybe with our last 15 seconds, You know, what does the next year look like for you? How can people get in touch? What are you going to be looking to partner on?
Yeah, so what we're going to do first of all is extend the Series A. We plan to extend the Series A in March. We are currently pivoting the ClearSpace 1 mission with the European Space Agency, restart, and we're going to essentially unlock the last 90 million of this mission, right? And so we raise an extension of the Series A for about 10 million. Beside that, obviously, we push forward the activities we have in the UK. We get started on life extension in Luxembourg, and then we're going to lay the foundations for a US positioning as we move forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke.